And we're live. TikTok is, we're live on TikTok as well. Hi guys, welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for joining me. So hello on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok, my first live. And I think if you're just meeting for the first time, my name's Dr. Sylvia, and so glad for you guys to join. I know quite a few people have popped onto the channel in the past, and this is my first TikTok live. I hope I'm not going to get distracted by this. But anyway, to everybody else on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, you're very much welcome. How are you guys doing? I hope you've had a great weekend. Welcome to November, literally a couple of months before this year ends. Wow, well done. Anyway, we are talking about fibroids and your diet. In fact, we're talking about the most effective ways, natural ways for shrinking fibroids. And it's a 7-part series that I'm starting tonight. So this is the very first one. We're looking at diet in particular today. But we've got 6 more planned over the next few weeks and looking at other natural aspects and just having a conversation around how they impact fibroids. So if you're interested in this conversation, if you're interested in the topic, I'd love to hear from you. Pop your comments or question. Please keep it respectful. I know that there's lots of controversy around natural treatments, especially when it comes to hormone-related conditions like fibroids, but I think it's really important for us to have conversations and to learn from each other. And sometimes opinions will differ, yes, but it's just good to be able to express yourself in a safe space, which is what we are doing here and sharing information. So if you're just joining me on TikTok, hi, welcome. I'm Dr. Sylvia. I'm a general practitioner. I'm based in the United Kingdom. I discuss everything women's health. I like to talk from a place of experience, both in personal lived experience, but also in terms of my profession about different medical issues, different health-related issues as they affect women. So particularly things like fibroids, menstrual issues. I've just literally come away from a whole month dedicated to menopause topics. Of course, we were marking Menopause Awareness Month last in October. So I had a whole month dedicated to that subject. So my channel is AskAwayHealth, and you can find a lot of my long form videos on YouTube. And thank you so much for joining. This is going pretty quickly, so I hope I'm going to be able to say hi to everybody. Hi, Luke, Bushra, Olaoluwa, Blessed Lisette. If I say hi to everybody, if I say hello to everybody, I'm not going to be able to go on with the stream, but thank you so much for joining. I would really love to hear your questions. It's my first TikTok, so if I'm not very nimble on it, please bear with me. I'm sure I'm going to get used to it. It's my first TikTok live. But anyway, let's get started, okay? For guys on my regular streaming link, which are those people on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, let me share the usual disclaimer. And basically what we're doing is we're sharing medical information for the purpose of education. I can't assess you. I can't give you medical advice. I can't diagnose you on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. But my intention here is to share as much fact-based, hopefully science-based information that you can hopefully go and sit down with your own registered medical practitioner, ask the questions that you need to ask, just sort of signpost you in a particular direction where you can get the best health possible. That's what I'm interested in. So today's conversation is around fibroids, which we know fibroids are benign growths that develop from the womb. And they are amongst the most common gynecological issues that women have. And so many women have fibroids. It's a global problem. We tend to see it more in women of Black heritage, so whether African, African-American, Afro-Caribbean, but of course, many other ethnicities also have fibroids. We think that, because we don't know for certain, but we think that among the cause, we have things like hormone imbalance as something to do with how fibroids develop. It's a very strong factor. We think that there are other things involved as well. But hormone imbalance, and in particular estrogen and progesterone, have been identified as the hormones that are implicated in fibroids growth. But there are other things, like I said, so it could have something to do with your genetic makeup. It could have something to do with your lifestyle, and that's why we're talking about diet in particular today. So for example, things like being overweight, things like the kind of food that you eat. It could have something to do with smoking, it could have something to do with stress, high blood pressure, and so on. So we think, or it could also have things to do with your environment and endocrine disrupting chemicals, which again are different things in our environment that we come into contact them different ways, like by the food that we eat, by the cosmetic products that we use, and domestic things that we use. So quite common in the environment, and they're called endocrine disrupting chemicals. They have a potential to disrupt how our hormones work, and so could potentially contribute to fibroids. So all those things have an implication in some way or the other how fibroids are develop. Sorry, TikTok is distracting me and saying, encourage my viewers to share my live and invite more friends. Guys, please share my live and invite your friends to come and have the conversation. But seriously, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And I hope this conversation is useful. Let me know if you've got any questions. I will try my best to address them. But this is like a teaching session, so I'm going to be referring to my slides and my notes and coming to questions from time to time. But they're all very, very welcome. Okay, what are we doing? Okay. So let us start with the conversation. So why diet? Why natural? Why what are the? Well, let's talk about what the treatment options for fibroids are. Let's start with that. So lots of different things, lots of different options. Of course, those of you who know about fibroids, either because you've had fibroids or know somebody who has them, you know that the conversation is either around surgery, for example, or surgery alternatives. So surgery could be removal of the fibroids, which is myomectomy, or removal of the womb, which is of course not a preferred option for so many different reasons. But then there are also alternatives like uterine fibroid embolization, where to shrink the fibroid, an injection of some kind of inert material or benign material or chemical is passed into the bloodstream towards the fibroid blood vessel. So it knocks off the blood supply to the fibroid and then shrinks it. So that's one way, that's a surgery alternative. Then, of course, there are a whole host of different drugs that do different things, from managing pain or managing bleeding, right down to actually trying to tip or restore or affect hormone balance. And they have their own side effects, and there's a whole different range of drugs. But the key thing actually is about the preference and tolerance and side effects. That's the issue, because these methods I've just mentioned are not acceptable to many people for different reasons. And increasingly people are questioning, these hormones that we're putting into our body, what are the implications? These are the real concerns. These are what people are sitting down and asking themselves. And while it's good to have information, there's still a lot of research going on. So we don't have all that information. And we may not have the information about possible effects of hormones. And for some we do. And the side effects of a lot of these drugs are not very pleasant. They are not, some people can't tolerate them. For some, they're very nasty. For some, they could be sort of short-term, long-term. And then the other thing, of course, is that even with these treatments, fibroids could still come back. So there's a whole conversation around the treatment options for fibroids. The treatment, of course, will depend on what the fibroids are like, in the sense that do you have one? Is it just one fibroid? And what kind of problems is it causing? Is it causing a lot of bleeding? Is it causing a lot of pain? Is it affecting fertility or other possible complications that fibroids can lead to? Because of course, let's remember that if a woman has fibroids and doesn't have symptoms, she doesn't need any treatment if it's not doing anything, if it's not growing, if it's just sitting there. And there are many, many women in that particular category who have fibroids. In fact, majority of women, I was saying in a video I published not too long ago, that if you gathered 100 women who have fibroids, that is, you've done a scan, you've confirmed that they have fibroids, actually around 60 of them do not have symptoms, but you have 30 who will have symptoms, and symptoms that are, to different degrees, can be quite distressing. So we have to have a conversation about treatment. So if we're looking at those women who need treatment, and we're saying that all those hormones or surgery, it's not the answer, it's not preferred, it's not wanted, or it's not even the right way because they still want to have a family, what else can they do? So we'll come and look at natural options, and that is how we come to this series that I'm starting today. Right, so diet. what is it that makes us think that diets could help in fibroids treatment? So we believe that specific diets can support hormone balance, which, like I mentioned, hormone balance is a key issue when it comes to fibroids. We know that both estrogen and progesterone are implicated. And broadly, we say, a diet that is rich in vegetables, that in fruits and whole grains, and low in processed foods. That's generally what we say when it comes to fibroids. But I want us to sort of dive a little bit deeper into the conversation. And then I want to look at 3 types of diets, because there are different types of diets that people talk about, which, is fair enough. But there are 3 main types I want to talk about today. And when we say the anti-inflammatory, it's not as if you have an anti-inflammatory diet per se, but I'm really looking at a diet that is anti-inflammatory. That's what I mean by anti-inflammatory diet. So I don't have a particular diet type called anti-inflammatory. It's just that its component is anti-inflammatory. Then there's a detox diet I want to have a quick look at, and then of course paleo diet, and just sort of look at what they are and how they could affect fibroids, plus good or bad, good idea, bad idea, that kind of a thing. So when we're looking at the types of foods that cause inflammation, so guys on TikTok, please forgive me. I'm looking this way because my camera for the YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn people is like this, as well as my slides. But I will look at you guys just to have a look at what is going on, and if there's a question that I'm missing, so please bear with me. Okay, so what foods cause inflammation? Mostly, if we ask you that question, you'll be able to say, processed foods, for example, fast foods, and of course you'll be correct. But also let's add to that things like processed meats and, fatty meats. So we're talking about refined wheat products or processed wheat products. We're talking about pasta, white bread, white rice, that make up that could contribute to inflammation. White rice is rice that is refined and pretty much has lost its fiber content compared to brown or wild rice. The wild rice version is of course better because it contains more vitamins and minerals and more fiber than white rice, so that is better for fighting inflammation. And of course, the other major inflammation food is sugar, processed sugar, sweets, your candy, soft drinks, all manner of stuff, pastry and cakes and biscuits and all the stuff that contain all those sweet stuff, fruit juice, and yes, fruits naturally will contain sugar, but I'm talking about fruit juices that you can go and buy, and they are prepared with added sugar. That's a lot of sugar. And I've talked about soft drinks and soda, for example. Okay, so let's look at detox diets. Okay. So I've just looked at anti-inflammatory diets, and one of the things I think is also important when you're looking at anti-inflammatory diets is the whole process or the whole business of chronic inflammation is important. It's important in so many different disease conditions, and fibroid is not left out. So inflammation itself is recognized as a process in the body that contributes to a lot of disease. So whether we're talking about autoimmune condition, problems like diabetes and so on, we are looking at inflammation of the cells as being a big problem. And we are seeing that as more research is going on, we're seeing that conditions like fibroids, even endometriosis and all that, there's some element of inflammation going on. So it does make sense that if you target foods that will help to counter inflammation in the body, you'll probably be more successful in controlling those conditions. I'm not saying that it will completely cure it because we don't have that kind of information, but we're looking at things you can do yourself naturally to help. Okay, so we know, I was just talking about sugar. We know that high blood sugar can make your insulin levels go up, and that's in turn over time can lead to insulin resistance and weight gain. If you remember, I said earlier that fibroid is associated or is linked to being overweight. So that means more likely to have fibroids if you're overweight, although there are many slim women who don't have fibroids. And that's why I said that we don't know everything about fibroids. We're still learning, but there is, information that is coming out, that is evolving, that is helping us to manage fibroids. So we've talked about anti-inflammatory diet. So we're saying that it is a diet or a style of eating where you cut down or remove things like sugar, processed carbohydrates. So we're talking about the white breads and pasta, sugar, processed meat, fatty meats, because you're trying to reduce inflammation in your diet. Okay, so let's talk about detox diet. So for the sake of my people on Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm just showing a slideshow of different vegetables, apples, green apples, I mean, cucumbers, courgettes, different things that people sort of put into their blender, avocado, peas, all these green things. And that's not the only components of detox diet. Of course, I just selected this because they look so nice and green. But detox diets usually emphasize juicing, plant-based foods, and the intention is, and sometimes fasting in order to cleanse. So the intention is about taking a particular diet because you want to cleanse your system. Okay, so it can be different combinations, but essentially it's plant-based food. And the idea is not bad, because it takes you away from this bad things I was just talking about, the sugars, the processed carbohydrates, and the fatty meats and all that. So the rationale is not bad, because in terms it's trying to get rid of toxins from the body, which can also help with the balance of hormones. Some people believe that it can help to get rid of excess estrogen, and of course by so doing could help to reduce the size of the fibroids, or at least help to manage the fibroids symptoms. So while it's not a bad idea, the concerns I have, one of them is for somebody who stays on, so it depends on how you do it. Okay, there are some people who do this and they've got a good style for doing it, and what that means is that they have a process that does not allow their body to lose necessary nutrients. Because if you follow a detox diet solely, strictly, it can be very, very restrictive and mean that you would lose certain nutrients. So there could be initial relief of symptoms. It could help to clear bloating, because again, we're saying it gets rid of toxins. So there could be, in the short term, you could have some of those effects, but long term, it's quite restrictive. It's quite restrictive. So first of all, you have the concern that how effective is this? Because we have to. One thing I think is really important in this whole conversation we're having around diet and fibroids is that what can be good for one person may not be the same for somebody else. And it's okay if somebody says, oh, I tried this diet and this was my experience. So what you need to think about is, how well you can commit to it, whether it will have the same effect on you. If it's not something that's going to poison or hurt you, then yes, of course you can try it. But bear in mind that it should be under supervision, it should be monitoring, and you should also have it at the back of your mind that because it did extremely well with XYZ does not necessarily mean the same for you, for different reasons. And I think it's good to have that at the back of our minds. But going back to the detox diet, so the issues I would have are the potential of a very restrictive plan for a prolonged period of time that can cause serious illness. So I think a balanced detox, maybe somebody decides, okay, they want to do a couple of days, 1 or 2 days in a month of a detox with those the mixture of different things I've talked about, like on the people on YouTube and Facebook, you have the slideshow, what's it called? Slideshow, demonstrating the different combinations that are possible, that you could have, like I said, cucumber, lime, lemon, green apples, avocado, courgettes, and all sorts of things that can go into the mix. So if somebody wants to do that for a couple of days in a month, in addition to other types of diet that allows them to have a good balance of nutrients, then that could be reasonable. But to say that you want to do this every single day, and that because you're intending to shrink the fibroids, I will be very concerned, because it's quite a restrictive diet. Okay, so we've talked about 2 types of diets so far. We've talked about anti-inflammatory, and I'm simply talking about eating foods that limit inflammation or do not increase inflammation in your system, and we've just been talking about detox diets. So hi to Yolisa Pakadi. Hi, Yolisa. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Doctor. More video about what to eat for lunch and dinner, please. Okay. Right. Well, having a general conversation. Thank you so much for that suggestion, Yulisa. Thanks for watching as well. Where are you watching from? It'd be great to know. But yeah, I'm going to look into that. I'm actually think it might be a good idea to sort of do a video dedicated to different meal types. What I wanted to do today was sort of look at different food groups, and it may be that your question is answered as we go through. So, but I'll keep that in mind if I don't cover it in this particular segment. Okay, so we've talked about detox, talked about what's the other one? Anti-inflammatory. What about paleo? Paleo diet, very popular diet, and for good reasons. It's as a way to lose weight. Yes, it's popular, but we're talking particularly about fibroids. And I think the more I look at the diet, and I feel it's probably one that I'll say comes pretty close to what you want to be eating in terms of fibroids, controlling fibroids and helping to balance your hormones, helping to reduce inflammation. So what are paleo diets? So basically food types based on, ancestral eating pattern, what our ancestors, what they used to eat back in the day, thousands of years ago. So a diet that is really focused on getting rid of grain. So it's not a grain / legumes or beans or dairy kind of diet, and definitely no processed foods in that diet. And one of the rationales is that one of the positive ideas about it is that it's supposed to help reduce inflammation. I think I've got Yulisa is watching from South Africa. Hey, thank you so much. That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, so I think I have a paleo. Oh, unless I didn't download it. Oh no. Oh no, I did. Okay. Okay, so for those of you on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, you can see my visual of the paleo diet. You can see what they avoid on the paleo diet. You can see what they eat on the paleo diet plan. And so what they eat on the paleo diet plan is lean meats. So meat is allowed, but lean meats. And we'll talk a little bit about meat in a few moments, actually, and address some of the controversies about meat and the issues, because there's quite a lot of things around meat and fibroids. But then they also eat fish and seafood. They eat eggs. They eat fruits, tubers, like potatoes, yam, vegetables, healthy fats and oils like olive oils, nuts, and seeds. Okay, and then they avoid grains like pasta, rice, bread. They avoid, and this will be, sugar and high fructose corn syrup. We've talked about this already. That's quite obvious. So fruit juices, soft drinks, sodas, dairy and trans fats. Yep, so the bad fats, and vegetable oil. So things like sunflower oil and so on will be avoided in the paleo diet. So it may provide some benefit in, your fibroids, because you're cutting out processed food, getting rid of refined sugars. It depends on whether the person can tolerate them, and again, there's issue about red meat and fibroids, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. But the paleo is you're probably likely to sustain it for long term if you have that mindset, if you're the kind of person who wants to, go in that direction. But what if you're somebody who doesn't use vegan, who doesn't eat meat? So it's not for everyone. But if you're that kind of person, then I can see that it can be sustainable. You might need to make adjustments. Vegetables, nuts, seeds, and meat, lean meats, and so that's the paleo diet. Okay, so I want us to have a look at. So we've talked about different examples of diets and how they could impact fibroids. So now let's sort of narrow down and look at something like, let's talk about dairy. Let's talk about dairy or no dairy. If you have fibroids, dairy or no dairy. Unfortunately, research doesn't exactly help at the moment. Why do I say that? So the first thing I want to say is that because many people say, oh, they don't do studies on this topic because the drug companies want to make money and so on and so forth. I hear that. I do a lot of fibroid videos on YouTube. So I get a lot of feedback and, pushback, especially because my videos range from, because I want us to be well informed. So my videos range from different fibroid treatments. And so when I talk about treatments like medication, then we get a lot of pushback. Talk about surgery, we get a lot of pushback. But I do want to say that those solutions have helped many people. And we're all individuals. We have our own different experiences and preferences. And I think if somebody who has fibroids and is experiencing extremely severe symptoms and wants to go down the route of surgery, we shouldn't condemn them, or wants to go down the route of medication. And as long as they're informed about what options there are. They may also be informed about natural options and choose not to go down that route. And everybody is, perfectly entitled to make their choice. But we're talking about natural options and we're looking at diet. So dairy research is controversial. What I mean by that is they look at studies amongst different groups of women. So you might look at studies of women in Italy or women in America or women in China, and you get different results. That's the issue that we're having. However, there is, general agreement that animal sources of milk, for example, tend to not favor fibroids compared to plant. Okay, so all types of dairy will contain hormones. It's coming from animals. There'll be some degree of estrogen inside the milk or inside the cheese or whatever it is. And then the processing, the way that the milk or whatever the dairy product is processed can also add in hormones, because all sorts of different things happen in the processing, during processing, and it can vary from country to country. That's another thing. Okay, so hormones like estrogen are soluble in fat. So whole milk will likely contain higher hormones than skim milk. So if you're trying to if you're making a decision between whole milk and skim milk, in addition to the fact that, skimmed contains less fat, then it will also contain less hormones compared to whole. So that's the kind of thinking that you want to be having if you're looking at making that decision. Compare those two types of milk. But overall, I was reading a nutritionist who said they looked into this, and that yes, there's this conversation around the hormone content of milk, but actually the hormone levels in milk are so small, they're so minimal compared to the estrogen that our own body produces. Could it really affect the fibroids? Again, controversial topic. Don't quote me and say, oh, Dr. Sylvia is against milk or for this. No. And we're just having a conversation around it. And somebody saying that, well, is it possible? We don't have exact studies that tell us these things. Because the thing is, and this is an argument that they presented, and I'd love to know what you guys think. They said, okay, soy milk, for example, soy, we know has phytoestrogens. And to some extent, and this is not for everybody, but they suggested that it could help some women going through menopause, hot flushes, because it contains estrogen, or because it can act in a way, it can act like estrogen in the body. So if it's able to do that, the question is, why, if you're drinking milk and it increases your estrogen levels, why is it that it doesn't provide that benefit to women who are menopausal? Why don't we ask women going through menopause to just drink soy milk because it contains estrogen, and so it would help with menopause? So the point I'm trying to make, or the point that this person, because it's not my argument, but the argument that they're trying to make is that actually it doesn't, it's the drinking the milk and expecting that it contains estrogen that can affect your body is probably not so. And they're just using the example of how it's not really effective in somebody who is taking it for menopause hot flushes. Now, they haven't done any large studies to look into this. It's just thinking aloud. It's just wondering. What I will say is, if you're trying to make a decision between what type of milk can I use, I have fibroids, I want to go natural to control my fibroids. If you want to have that conversation, then you're going for plant-based sources of your milk. So we're talking about things like almond, we're talking about things like oat milk or cashew milk. Coconut milk are preferable. Soy milk, again, remains controversial because, like I said, it contains phytoestrogens. When it gets into the body, it could behave in a way that's, similar to estrogen. So that, again, is something that you could avoid for that reason, because we're not sure. The other thing is to look out for additives in the milk that you're taking. So that's something else I'd suggest that would be useful as you're going to purchase your milk. Look at what's in it. I think I have. Let me just put this up now and just leave it on the screen. So I have if you're going shopping and you're looking, these are some plant-based sources of milk, yogurt, what's that? Even ice cream. That's yogurt again. Even cheese, plant butter, almond peanut butter. So there are different options actually that you can sort of sit down, and when you're doing your shopping, you can actually look and see if you can find those things, and go down. You're choosing to go down that route. I think one of the things it will do is probably help to cut down on inflammation. And you can actually, as long as you're searching, look for those that don't have any additives. We don't really know much about ice cream, cheese, and other animal-based items. Like I said, the studies are conflicting. Some reports that, it might increase the growth of fibroids in one group, in one particular geographical location. You come to another geographical location, it didn't have any effect. That's what our studies are saying to us. However, you have anecdotes. You have women who say, I cut this out of my diet, I did this, I did that, and it helped. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any person's experience. I just want you to, when you're listening to people's experience, take on board what is safe, consider what your own health background is before you don't jump into doing what they're doing, and have at the back of your mind that, well, it might not work for you exactly the way it's worked for them. Just have that at the back of your mind. So overall, I would say plant-based yogurts, ice creams, other dairy substitutes are probably better options for somebody who has fibroids. Dairy has had mixed reviews in the fibroid community because some people feel that is linked to hormone disruption. Other people feel that, it's good because it contains calcium and vitamin D. So there's also that balance, because I think next week we're talking about vitamin D and fibroids, and there's a lot of research that we're seeing. I think my charge is low on TikTok. We're seeing a lot of we've seen a lot of data telling us about the benefits of vitamin D and for fibroids, and how a lot of women with fibroids may have low vitamin D levels and so on. So there is that balance. But again, like I've said, low-fat dairy may be an option to go for, plant dairy, and then look at vitamin D and calcium supplements. Make sure that you're checking your levels. Okay, so we've talked about dairy. Let us look at soy. Debates. Thank you so much, guys, on TikTok. I actually haven't seen any questions, unless I'm not looking in the right place. So I apologize if I'm not getting it right. This is, like I said, this is my first stream. So after this one, I'll do an overview and see what I got wrong, so the next time it's better. All right, so we're going on to soy. Let me take this image that I've had showing on. I think people would have picked up at least a couple of things. So you can look out for plant-based dairy sources if this is a question you're asking yourself about what change to make in your diet to help your fibroids. Next, let's talk about the soy debate, okay? So again, this is also another area where things are contradictory, okay? Because, I was just mentioning earlier about somebody saying that, well, if soy has estrogens that could affect your fibroids, why isn't it helping women with menopause, hot flushes, since it contains estrogen, or since it behaves like estrogen? So those are the questions that we're asking. Some studies, like the Black Women Health Study or Survey in America, they found there was no link between women having fibroids and using soya milk. There was another study that showed that soy intake was associated with larger fibroids. So that is why, study-wise, it's controversial. But the thing is, the studies are happening in different parts of the world. The particular type of women that the studies are being performed on could be different. So they're different. There could be reasons why the studies are not giving us exactly the same results. So there's still a lot of work to be done in that area. I've lost my people on TikTok because my phone battery has gone. This is poor planning. But anyway, let us carry on. So yeah, the conclusion on soy and fibroids is mixed. It's mixed. They've done studies on Chinese women and those studies suggest that there's a link between soy milk and an increased risk of fibroids, especially very early on. But like I said, other studies don't show that. So that's one that, if you were to ask most people, they'll probably say avoid. If you're looking at, I've got fibroids, I'm trying to control naturally, should I avoid it? This is the studies that we have. And I wouldn't be surprised if you come across somebody who said, oh, I'm okay, I've got fibroids, I use soy and there's not a problem. I'm telling you what the studies are saying, but I'm also conscious that different people have different experiences. So the bottom line is that we know soy does contain phytoestrogens, and they could have small estrogen-like effect and could affect fibroid growth. So please bear that in mind. Okay, so now let us take a quick break. I think the next thing we're going to talk about is the meat issue, but I want to take a quick break and then I will be back with you. I'm just having a look to see that I've not missed anything. Yeah, let's take a quick break and I should be back in 1 second. Okay, yeah, we're back. Oh dear me, I lost my people on TikTok. Oh gosh, I didn't realize I didn't charge the phone fully. I'll know better for next time. Okay, so we are talking about your diet and fibroid. If you're just joining, hi, I'm Dr. Sylvia. We're looking at the most effective methods for shrinking fibroids naturally. And I just said to myself, when I was preparing this, I was like, how am I going to cover all this thing to some depth in 1 hour? Because I want my live stream to be, when did we start this? I don't want this to go beyond an hour. Okay, but yes, I was just saying to myself, there's so much to talk about. And that's why I thought, okay, let's just split this and do this over 7 series. There'll probably be a couple of nights where we don't do up to an hour. But diet, for example, there's a lot to say. So this is just the first one. Please come back for the next few weeks where I'm going to be doing vitamin D, herbs and supplements. I can't remember what else is on the list, but yeah, we're going to be discussing them at length. So if you have any questions, or if you're exploring, you're trying to understand fibroids and treatment of fibroids, I've got playlists on my channel. I will link them in the description box for this video later on, so you can go and check them out. But tonight's dedicated to looking at natural treatment options, which people might prefer or people can use alongside other treatments like medication and surgery, and to help to manage their conditions. And I always say this is a safe space, so I don't want anybody to condemn another person or even to start throwing challenges around about, why are you using hormones? Why are you doing that? You can have your own opinion. Let it be fact-based. You can question things, of course, but without accusing people or trying to blame people for making choices that they need to. Okay, and again, my disclaimer, of course, that I'm providing education, hoping to just share information that you can use to have a conversation with your own practitioner, ask about different options and how it could apply to you. All right, we're talking about meat or no meat. Should you eat meat or no meat? I mean, we mentioned the paleo diet. Please excuse the fireworks if you can hear them. I'm so sorry. The window is shut, but this can get quite noisy. Right, so meat or no meat, should you eat meat or should you not eat meat if you have fibroids? So, the concerns are around processed meat in particular. So bacon, sausage, meat that's been smoked, conventionally raised meats, meats grown in farms where, they have been, the produce, the cattle are being treated with steroids, hormones, antibiotics. All those raise concerns about how, when we eat them, they could affect us because they contain these things we call endocrine disrupting chemicals. They can disrupt the hormone balance. So for somebody who is already experiencing hormone imbalance that is leading to their fibroids, this will not help. So in the EU, I practice in the UK, but in the EU, using growth promoters like these steroids, hormones, and all these things is forbidden. but some countries still use them to meet demand. And hormones are quite extensively used in veterinary medicine for treating sick animals, managing reproductive issues, even promoting growth in animals for higher milk production and growth rate. So of course there is a concern, and concern around that. In the US, for example, the FDA has approved several active compounds for food animal production, and those products or those compounds do contain progesterone and estrogen. So that is a concern. That is one way that processed red meat, meat red in this kind of conventional farms, meat that is treated this way, cattle that is raised in this way could contribute to hormone imbalance. Then, of course, there is the risk of inflammation. We talked about inflammation at the beginning, but there's a risk of inflammation from processed foods, which can develop when you're frying them or smoking them, or because of the higher fatty content of the meat. These are all the things that can increase the risk. These are all the reasons why we say, oh, meat and fibroids don't go hand in hand. But that said, you can look at healthier options or healthier ways to eat your meat. So it all boils down to the decision you're making when you're putting if you're going to the grocery store, or if you're thinking about where this meat that you're eating, where is it come from? Is it organic, or where is it come from? How was it raised? These are the kind of questions you want to ask yourself, if you can, if these are considerations, because some of us, we can't. Some of us, you may not have access to that information. Actually, you may not know. So I think what for me is really important in this whole conversation around diets and what to eat or what not to eat, I think the word moderation is so important. Moderation is so important because at the end of the day, after everything said and done, eating in moderation, any of these things, yes, it's good to cut down or cut out things like alcohol, sugar, and all that. But other foods, we've just been talking about dairy, we've just been talking about meat. And if you're sort of trying to question, oh, where is it from? What is this? What is that? If that is something that you're not able to do, then moderate quantities are less likely to cause harm than if you're eating them in very large amounts every so often, every day. But if you're able to sort of question and make choices, then look at your shopping, look at the labels on the produce you're buying. So is it grass-fed, steroid-free, nature-raised? Same also applies to fish products, chicken. So fish, for example, you're looking for wild caught instead of farm-raised. Those are examples of what you can do. Halal meat, which is reared in a special way for religious purposes, and the animals have to be fed a natural diet. They also might be a safer option because they are unlikely to have been exposed to the hormones or the antibiotics and so on. And then the other thing to think about particularly for fish, and it was interesting when I was reading this up, I came across an article saying that considering where the waters where the fish are either grown or where they are caught, if chemicals have leaked into those waters, of course they can also affect the fish, and so indirectly those endocrine disrupting chemicals can come into the body through the fish that has been affected with them. The other thing, of course, is to choose healthy plant oils with which to cook your meats, your fish, or your chicken and turkey and all this stuff. So again, olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, plant-based butter, preferable to animal fats like animal butter or lard. So the things ordinarily eating high quantities of red meat, of course, has been linked to other health conditions. We talked about inflammation at the beginning, linked to things like being overweight, linked to high cholesterol, linked to heart disease, but also this inflammation is linked to the risk of fibroids. So we're saying that in the question of meat or no meat, avoiding processed meats is better. Avoiding fatty meats is better. Lean meats are preferable. Then look at the source of the meats. ask your questions around endocrine disrupting chemicals. So look at where the meat is sourced if you can. So those are the kind of issues that you want to be thinking about, in terms of either eliminating red meat from your diet, or if you're not or you can't, then look at where it's sourced and look at how to safely or prepare it in a safer way to manage or to help manage your fibroids. So lean meat, like organic poultry, fish. And of course, I shouldn't forget, actually, talking about meat, if people who want to go vegan, plant-based proteins like tofu, lentils, beans, are options to consider, because you're trying to, cut meat out of your diet. Okay, one point I wanted to talk about is alcohol, and I think alcohol is on my thumbnail. And I think it's really important to have that conversation about alcohol. So just very briefly, one of the things that it can do is, alcohol is associated with gaining weight. Okay, if you drink alcohol regularly, if you don't watch the amount that you're drinking, of course you're going to gain weight. But in addition to that is the fact that is associated with inflammation, and that will also affect the growth of fibroids. So cutting down and stopping, choosing alcohol alternatives like mocktails, if you've gotten into that habit of having a drink socially, or whichever way that many people get used to, then thinking about the potential effects of alcohol, those two ways, gaining weight, which can increase the risk of fibroids, but also increasing the risk of inflammation going on. Okay, so we've been talking about food, and I've tried to touch, some of the key areas around food: dairy, meat, inflammatory foods, and what kind of diets and issues that could affect the diet. So is there really a fibroids diet? There's really no specific, this is a fibroids diet, but there are things that you can choose to eat in order to keep yourself healthy and potentially help to reduce your fibroids from growing. Will they shrink altogether? There is no evidence that we have that suggests that eating one particular style of food or combination of food actually shrinks the diet. But I have come across a lot of women who report that, when they've changed this in their diet, they've changed that in their diet, this was their experience. They put this in, they did that, this was their experience. And I respect all of those people, because like I said at the beginning, everybody has their own experience. But I do know, and I want people to be aware of, is that it may be yours, it may not be, and nobody should be restricted. Everybody should be aware of the different options that we have when it comes to managing fibroids, and then we can choose which is the most, which we would most want to go with. So while we don't have a single fibroids diet, we know that a diet that is anti-inflammatory, that is balanced, again, moderation, I think will help to reduce symptoms and improve your overall quality of life. So that kind of anti-inflammatory diet. So let me move this phone out of the way. I keep banging into it. So those kind of fibroid-friendly diets that are anti-inflammatory kind of diets, they will help to reduce estrogen and help to reduce inflammation, which is what you want, in order to manage your fibroids, growth. Okay, so we're going to be talking about vitamin D in another video. Like I said, that will probably be next week. What about, your diet? We've said being overweight or being obese is associated or is a risk factor for fibroids. So watching your weight is not just losing weight. Losing weight is good, but also the quality and the type of food that you're eating. So that's why it's really important that we look at the specific diets and see why a diet that is high in inflammatory foods can not only cause you to put on weight, but also cause potentially promote hormone imbalance that could allow those fibroids to thrive because of that important relationship with estrogen. The data is, I think the science is slow to catch up. We need a lot more data to tell us, okay, these are the foods that if you eat these foods, XYZ will definitely happen. If you don't eat these foods, this is what will happen. So we have different bits of information coming out. But I think for me, what's encouraging is that we actually have the data. I forgot. My plan was actually to share one of those studies on the screen, but I just forgot to link it up, but I'll put it in the description, so you're welcome to have a look at it and read through. There are lots of them that talk about vitamins. They talk about meats, like I've described. They talk about dairy, talk about endocrine disrupting chemicals, and I think it's helpful that we have researchers asking these questions, because this is what we as a community are asking. That look, can we have alternatives to surgery and to to surgery and medication that could make a difference. Now, when you're thinking about going down the route of diet, let me remind us that it's important. It's not a short-term thing. It's not a short-term thing. It could take time before you see the results. We're talking about months. So it's not something that you start today and then immediately begin to see some results. I mean, in terms of the fibroids, you could change your diet and start eating healthy food, and of course, your energy improves, your skin starts glowing, you begin to see changes. The size of your tummy or whatever begins to go down. But it might take some time if your target is about you have a couple of fibroids of XYZ size and you're trying to shrink them down. It might take some time to get that full effect. So commitment is important. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's a long-term commitment. It might take several weeks or months to actually achieve what you want. It's better to be consistent. And many people learn as they go on. Excuse me. And the reason for that being, like I said, that there isn't much data that says categorically this is what we have. And so you might question, well, why doesn't my doctor tell me about this? Why didn't my doctor say it? These are some of these things we're becoming more aware of them. Certainly in the last 10, 15 years, we're becoming much more aware of them. So they're still not mainstream. And your doctor isn't doing anything wrong, because many of us are trained with the information, the science-based information that we have about treating fibroids, using medication, using surgery, for example, and the newer interventions that have come up. But lifestyle as a very strong branch of medicine is one that is emerging, and not just for fibroids, not just for women's health, for several other conditions that we are recognizing more and more. So please don't think it's intentional that this information is being kept from you. That's not the case. And I do support people going to do their own research and go and say, oh, I noticed this, doctor. What is your thinking about this? What is have that conversation with your doctor. So it's not that they're keeping information away from you. It's okay to bring something to their attention and ask them to go and look into it, use their own medical experience. They might be able to ferret out more information, more data about something, and, work together to improve overall health. So yeah, there's a long time frame for seeing results. It's good to be realistic, because the benefits is that it's an overall healthier lifestyle when the diet shifts away from processed food and fatty meats and trans fats and sugars. Of course, it's healthier when you shift away from that towards more plant-based anti-inflammatory foods that can improve overall health. So there's the benefit of that. Now, one of the things that somebody says is with these treatments, medical treatments and surgery, fibroids come back. That is true. That is true. I think it would be good for, and I would love for people who employ these kind of changes to their lifestyle, and they've done that and it's now a way of life. What's the experience with the fibroids? Does it shrink the fibroids and then it completely goes away? Do you notice that, okay, if you sort of slip up, for example, or change back to, or not change completely back to the old style of eating, but maybe indulge a little bit here and there, what happens? Or do you find the fibroids coming back? Because, like I said, again, we are not 100% sure all the things that cause fibroids. There are different factors. It's one of those conditions, like many others, where it's not just one single thing that is responsible. There's a mix of different things. So it would be great to see the experience about whether once you switch up your diet, switch up to something that is more anti-inflammatory, the fibroids good and gone forever and ever and ever, no issues. From what is available to us, there is a role that can help to reduce the severity of the symptoms. They may not be able to prevent new fibroids from developing, but they may prevent them from growing to a very large extent, prevent from getting really devastating symptoms or very distressing symptoms. So I think what I would say to you, if you are sitting and thinking, I don't want surgery, I don't want any drugs, any hormones, blah, 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 I want to go natural, and you want to go via your diet, please, your practitioner is your friend. Your doctor is on your side, if I can put it that way. Let's have regular monitoring. So don't just say, oh, well, the doctor doesn't want to hear about anything natural and then just abandon them. You'll find a doctor who will, be there to support your journey. If you choose to go down the route of, changing your diet, then your doctor should welcome you back after a few months to check how you're getting on, how your symptoms doing. Do you need a repeat scan to see what the size of the fibroids are? Monitoring you in that sense. And if things aren't going the way you planned, could possibly give you some advice or, help you to, if you now decide you want to go down the route of medicine and surgery. So that kind of relationship I would strongly recommend. And please don't forget that diets may not work the same for everyone. It's important to look at what is comfortable for you, what can you stick to, what can you commit to, what is going to work for you. So yeah, that's the conversation I wanted us to have around diet and fibroids tonight. I think there's still so much to say, and I'm looking forward to doing some standalone videos where I sort of really dive down, do deep dives into different food types. And like my friend, I don't know if she's still here, like my friend Yolisa said, more about what to eat for lunch and dinner. I mean, I've talked about a broad range of things, but I'm certainly happy to look at, what kind of foods. We've talked about avoiding things like white rice or pasta, so something like quinoa, for example. I discovered quinoa maybe a year or two ago, and it's, quite healthy, delicious way to replace rice into in your meals. So that's something that you could look at. We talked about chicken and meat, if you still intend to eat meat, and different sources of those, how to source them safely, how to source the healthy versions as much as you can, and how to prepare them. So there's still quite a few options, but I think what I will do is look at a standalone video that I can properly research and then come back and say, hey, these are some suggestions for what you can have if you're looking at fibroids for breakfast, for lunch and dinner. And then, yeah, please let me know what you guys think, especially if you're watching on the replay, what your thoughts are, what your experience has been in terms of changing your diet, and how long did you experience the benefits for? Did the fibroids come back? Have you been completely free of fibroids for 5-6 years since you changed your diet? What's your lifestyle like? Or was your experience the opposite? You did all you could, but it didn't have the desired effect? Or was your experience that you couldn't even keep to it? We're all human. Nobody's penalizing anybody. It's just sharing experiences. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the month of November. I am just signing out now. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts in the comment section, and I will see you again soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Hi, I'm Dr. Sylvia. I'm so excited you're here. In this video, you'll get excellent health tips that will make a real difference. But that's not all. I also create personalized guides, tools, and plans tailored to your specific needs. These resources will help you reach your goals faster and more effectively. Don't miss out on your free copies. Check out the links in the description box below. Before you watch this video, please like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue this health journey together. So, let's get started. I'll see you in the rest of the video.